Hello and welcome to another edition of Shaking Up Kenosha. My name is Jeff Roberts and I'll be your host for this series of programs. Today we have with us Michael Weinhoff.
Yes.
Weinhoff, I said it. Oh, good, because I usually butcher everybody's name, so I wanted to try to make sure I got yours. Michael, you ran for public office recently. Unfortunately, you didn't get that office, but what did you run for and why did you do it?
Well, I ran for Kenosha County Board Supervisor in District 13, and I've always been kind of politically active, politically involved, but I haven't necessarily, run for offices as much. I've worked on a lot of other people's campaigns. And to be honest, it just got to the point where I got tired of looking at my tax bill going up and up and up, and there didn't really seem to be any sort of oversight and people out there who could look and read a budget and maybe propose some alternatives to what was being done. So that was my primary reason to.
But why politics? I mean, politics. Ooh, wipe your shoe.
Well, yeah, no, I hear you, and I don't necessarily look at it as politics. Dealing with that on the local level. Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. It's your local politics, your local elections, and that sort of thing that really affect your life most directly, from the safety to your property taxes to
the schools that your children go to,
schools, etc.
Now, when we think about politics and we think about budgets, budgets are always going to be a point of contention, no matter where you go, no matter what part of the state you're in, what state you're in. It's always going to be a part of contention. When we think about politics and how we have that kind of a struggle, there's all kinds of things that go on behind in the background, isn't there? Just kind of talk us through some of the things that happen or that could happen in the Kenosha County Board when it comes to budgets.
Well, in Kenosha County and of course the city of Kenosha itself, I mean the budgeting process right now, and this is also part of the reason that I wanted to run for county board, appears to be the county executive goes to the heads of all the departments, says, give me your budget, and then he puts it all together, submits it to the board, and the vast majority of the board just says, oh, that sounds great, let's fire that off and send it on down the line. I think we need to get more community involvement. We need to get more individuals, taxpayers, people maybe on what you would consider to be the other side of the coin, out there giving some oversight to this and actually looking at these budgets, looking at the expenditures, looking at some of these pet projects that are being done and what have you, and saying, you know what, maybe what we want to do is advocate for the people who are actually paying for this stuff as opposed to the people who are providing this stuff.
Yeah, instead of the pork projects like we see at a national level, we have pet projects here where, like the playground, although the playground was a great idea for the children who need handicap access, now we got to go sue the doggone contractor because it didn't work.
Yeah, and I don't have enough insight into that particular exactly what happened with that, because in reading about it, it seems like it failed a test for falls from 6 feet, and when you and I were kids,
we didn't worry about that.
We knew that the monkey bars were built to winnow away the population of kids like us.
But we still jumped off the doggone thing.
Yeah, we jumped off and we cracked our heads and what have you. So I mean, that kind of project that's the kind of thing we want to encourage. People out going out and raising private funds and putting together volunteers to get together as a community.
And that was a wonderful project. Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And then, of course, the government got involved and broke it. So.
Yeah. When we think about the elections, now the one that you just went through, although it didn't have the outcome that you were looking for, there's a lot of candidates and there's a lot of messages out there. How do you weed your way through all those messages so that you say, my message is the one that I want to actually portray for everyone so that they'll understand what the heck I'm doing and why I'm doing this? Well,
for the local elections, it's really about the groundwork, just getting out there and going door to door and getting your message out to the individual voters. Generally speaking, these elections are decided by 10, 20, 30 votes, and there's only 700 or 800 people who vote in total. It's funny, these local elections are nonpartisan, but they're partisan.
Right. They are.
They really are partisan, and I think part of what we're running into today is it's only one side of, I hate to say sides, but it's only one side that's really getting out there and being represented on the local level. People talk about getting involved in politics or running for county board, these local elections for community service or what have you. It's not true. Everybody has an agenda.
And sometimes the money has an agenda itself, and that will create,
certainly.
create an agenda. Now, for your case, when you were running, did you feel that you had enough time once you made the decision to run for office that you could have an effective campaign? Or was it one of those where you have to get out there and just push at the last minute to get your word out?
Actually, there was plenty of time. I just failed at getting my word out as effectively as my opponent did. Again, we're talking about these are nonpartisan elections, but they're partisan. I was running against the chairman of the Democratic Party. And I felt that by doing some decent literature and putting together my positions on things like taxes and TIFs and personal projects and things like that, that I would be able to have the time to go door to door and introduce myself to enough people to get elected. And I figured if I got 700 votes, I would be able to win this campaign. Whereas on the other side, I was apparently running against the Democratic Party, the unions, and all these other folks who were
going to be my next
selling
question.
the other side of the
That's the next piece of that story too, because when you look at national politics, there's just a tremendous amount of money, mountains of money that moves, and that's what makes the election. What about locally? How do you budget for something locally?
Well, you see at what point you're going to have to start reporting and try to spend less than that, because it's just such a pain to deal with the reporting on the campaign finances and that sort of thing. But again, with these local elections, it's not so much about the budgeting. It's not as much about the financing as it's about boots on the ground. It's about people engaging with each other. The neighbors going out and helping you to get elected, friends, et cetera, going out, knocking on doors and saying, this is my message. This is what I want to try and do for our community. And in my case, it was really all about the budgeting and our taxes. My taxes have gone up 60% since I moved here.
Yeah. When did you move here?
I moved here 10 years ago in May.
I've been here, my wife and I have been here in our family for 21 years, and I can't tell you how much, because I just get sick every time I think of it, how much our taxes has raised.
Oh yeah, and all that's money that's not going into your house. It's not going into improvements that you could be making, et cetera.
You start out at like $2,800 a year for taxes, or $3,000 a year, and then all of a sudden it balloons up, and you're paying almost $6,000, $7,000.
Well, particularly in the city of Kenosha.
Yeah. If you look at Pleasant Prairie, it's much less. It's about a quarter less.
Oh my God! I mean, I live in Strawberry Creek,
right?
Which is like the Park Place boardwalk of the tax system in the city of Kenosha. And if we were to move,
I got news for you: Whitecaps is not far behind.
Oh yeah, no, I get it, right? But we're subsidizing all this stuff that's going on with the rest of the city, but we're paying that insane tax rate. Whereas if we moved our houses across the street, it's literally 50% more to live in Kenosha than Bristol or Paris, and it's like 60 for Paris.
What is it for Pleasant Prairie? I mean, I know it's still considerable.
Pleasant Prairie, I don't know off the top of my head. I've actually got it right here. It's about $21 per thousand.
Yeah.
Whereas Kenosha's 29.
Yeah. So it's expensive.
27 and 29.
Expensive.
Yeah.
But it's less expensive. When we think about the local political structure, how sometimes we go out and we vote, or we don't get votes that we should, and in your case where the election came and went and kind of leaves you scratching, doesn't it? Wondering, what the heck happened? Why didn't I get elected?
Well, I know why I didn't get elected. I got outworked.
Yeah, well, you don't want to say that, but...
Well, I did. I mean, I worked hard. I dropped off 3,500 pieces of literature, or almost 4,000 pieces of literature.
Just in the District 13?
Yeah, just in District 13. It did 3 different pieces of literature, and I went out and knocked on doors. I knocked on every single door of every single person who's voted in the last 4 elections. Talked to probably half of them, maybe a third of them. My opponent talked to 200 more than I did.
That makes it a tough election, doesn't it? Whenever you see those kind of numbers, when we look at politics, and you and I have been around the block a time or two. We've seen what happens here in Kenosha. And in Kenosha, it seems that the money is the big piece. The second piece is, you are correct, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
But what other things can help? You mentioned having friends and neighbors going out and beating the bushes. Does it really matter if you have radio ads or if you have local television ads and things like that? Would that have helped?
I don't think so much for me. I think for the executive positions, mayors, county executives, et cetera, they'll get a lot more effect out of the radio and the TV ads, newspaper ads as well. You know, the news, like in our local newspaper, clearly caters to only one side at this point. But no, I got to say, hey, if you want your taxes to go down, what you need to do is find a representative or get out there and run for these offices, because so many of the county offices, so many of the aldermanic districts, et cetera, just have one candidate. And I guarantee you that as a taxpayer in the city of Kenosha and in Kenosha County, the odds are 90% that person who's running against nobody is not working with your best interest. Well, I shouldn't say that. Is not necessarily working with the best interest of your tax bill in mind. These people tend to have agendas. They're very pro-project, pro-money, spending money, et cetera, and aren't as tuned into, the fact that if you live in the city of Kenosha, your taxes are 50% higher than your neighbors.
And let's talk about that for a minute. When somebody says taxes, you automatically, your skin crawls. I mean, you think of the IRS and you think, state IRS level.
Yeah.
But what really goes into those kind of budgets besides a department director walking around saying, what are you going to need to be able to run your department? There's a bunch of other things in there too, isn't there?
Yeah, these are property taxes. So, the taxes go to the municipality. Well, actually, the majority of them go to the state, and then they come back to the municipalities. They go to the state, they go to the municipalities, they go to the county, and they go to the school district that you're in. The school district makes up a significant chunk of the taxes that you pay. But no, it's your property taxes are going towards police and fire, towards maintaining the roads, whether they're state highways or not, exactly. And goes towards subsidizing TIF districts for building museums downtown.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute, so just kind of hold that thought in mind. But when we think about road construction and rebuilding of some of the infrastructure that we have here in Kenosha, we are blessed with a wonderful area where it's rich in history, from the automobile industry, from the shipping industries, from days gone by. There's a tremendous amount of museums that we have, but that all costs money, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's. Are we getting into the TIFs now? Is that
no,
where you
not
wanted
yet,
to go?
not yet.
Yeah, it costs money. It costs money to build them. It costs money to maintain them, and regardless of how they disguise it, that money ultimately is coming out of our property taxes.
Has there been any discussions or talk that you've heard of, since this is supposedly nonpartisan, from either side, about the rail between Milwaukee and Kenosha?
Well, I know the mayor of Racine is very has been adamant about trying to reinvigorate getting the KRM system going. I mean, I think it would be fantastic if it were possible for it to pay for itself. If Metro said, yeah, we want to run a rail to Milwaukee, then that would be great. Or if there was some way to build like a bus thing that you could run between Kenosha and Milwaukee, that's
don't
fine.
we have the rails there? It's
yeah, the
just
rails are there.
They needed to be renovated and prepared for passenger traffic.
Yeah, this has been on the table since I first became aware of it in the early 90s. But it's just there's an enormous amount of expenditure that would need to go into this, and there's no practical way to make it pay as a government as a government funded project. It's sort of funny when you think about it, because the government basically put the rails out of business in the 50s by building the interstate highway system, which then we got all this carbon coming out in the 60s, which people are all upset now, and they think we should start running railroads again and riding on the trolleys, etc. The very things that they put out of business by building the interstate highway system in the first place. We now want to go back and rebuild the rails. Well, if it can operate as a private enterprise, that would be fantastic. I mean, there is a need for quick transport between the inner circle inside the I-94, because it takes 15-20 minutes to get from from the interstate to downtown Kenosha or downtown Racine.
Exactly.
I personally at this point it would be an extension of 794 would be absolutely ideal to be able to move commerce more efficiently between Milwaukee or Chicago and Racine and Kenosha.
Okay, so with that, it's about time for us to take a pause for the cause. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you camera shy but would like to get behind the scenes of the fun-filled world of television production? Then Kenosha TV just might be the place for you. Every week, your friends and neighbors on Kenosha TV create new programs. We always need people like you to help direct the shows, man the cameras, tweak the audio, and have a great time in producing programming for Kenosha viewers. No experience is necessary. Kenosha TV provides the training and equipment for you. For more information, give us a call or go to our website.
Welcome back. We're here with Michael Weinhoff, who ran for office, and unfortunately you didn't get it, but we're talking about taxes, and we're talking about budgets, and we're talking about all the things that make everybody's skin really crawl. Talk to us about Kenosha County and the city of Kenosha, what you see happening with the budgets there.
Well, particularly in the city of Kenosha, and the county as well, the budgets have really kind of gotten incredibly out of control. I mean, we're paying close to 3% of the value of our property every single year in our overall property taxes. Now, obviously, that includes the school districts and the state's kind of the budget as well. But everybody acts as if it's some great mystery as to how the government works, particularly on a local level. There are successful cities out there that are running at a 0.5% mill rate or a 1% tax rate or even a 2% tax rate and doing just fine. We've got to stop letting our elected officials get away with this notion that, we provide all of these great services and that's why the tax rate is so much higher in the city. We've got to stop just accepting that answer as being okay. There are a lot of things that we can do without necessarily harming any of the people who work for the city, but there are a lot of things that they can look at to start trimming back and start acting like a responsible business. Not the least of which is what the Kenosha County. There's an enormous difference in the taxation between Racine and Kenosha County.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking off camera about that.
Yeah. Right now, there's rough numbers off the top of my head. There's 160,000 people who live in Kenosha County. There's 200,000 people who live in Racine County. The Kenosha County budget is $219 million this year. The Racine County budget, which keep in mind has 40,000 more people, all right, is $160 million. Okay, and there's a few very notable differences between the way Racine and Kenosha are run. First of all, a lot of the services that we have, we don't provide. We send them up to Racine to get the services. They get the money from us to provide those services to us, most notably mental health issues. Our mill rate, the actual money that we collect directly from our taxpayers, in Kenosha is 65 million, roughly, whereas in Racine it's 33 million. Okay. Wow. Again, more people up there. Less people down here, and we're sucking more money out of our local economy because of it. Now, okay, there's a lot of contributing factors to why this happens. Sure. Do we have an extra 500 feet of county highway, et cetera? There's all these little nuances to it.
But there's also things like when you have a mayor and you've got a city administrator. Why do you need a city administrator?
I actually don't necessarily have as much of a problem with the city administrator, provided the job of the city administrator is to say no, or to actually look at the budgeting side of it. I don't want to get into the politics of the fight between the city administrator and the mayor.
I was always curious about that. It's just because you don't have that same thing at the county level. But you've got layer upon layer upon layer upon layer in the city level. And then you look between Racine and Kenosha, whole different ballgame. They don't have them so many layers.
Well, you mean the city of Racine?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. But the city of Racine is a bit of a tax hell as well. And the city of Racine actually does have a city administrator as well. It kind of depends on the circumstance. If you have a mayor who's it's an elected position, you're going to be bringing a new person in there all the time. If you have a mayor who is an experienced executive, that they can actually administrate. You've got the mayor, the city administrator, and then you've got all the department heads. You have to rely on those department heads to have the accountability for their budgets, that they're going to, they're going to set their goals. This is actually where I was going, talking about the difference between Racine County and Kenosha County, is that they have a lien system in place. Which is a business-oriented system where everyone is accountable for their budgets. They're accountable for what they do, and they take measures. They set goals for being as lean as possible. Where, as far as I know, Kenosha County doesn't do that. They've also had a turnover of executives in Racine over the last 10 years. They had 3 separate executives who went in not to implement new programs, but to manage a county budget as effectively and as efficiently as possible. So.
Yeah, but they have a matrix system where Kenosha doesn't. Kenosha, it's still bottoms up. You still rely on those department heads to give you the money, or to tell you how much they need.
Yeah.
And then if you inflate it 1 or 2% each time, then you've got the problem we've got, where we've got runaway taxes.
Yeah, you've got that. I mean, you've got that underlying notion too that there's no possible, conceivable way that any department could spend less money next year than they spent the year before. It's utterly impossible. Frankly, I think everybody should have zero-based budgeting, where they go in and say, here are the line items for my department. What I believe we're going to have to every year, not just. Go into their spreadsheet and add 2% and say, okay, here's my budget for next year.
That leads me up to the TIFs. Now we were talking about TIFs before, exchanging emails back and forth.
Yeah.
We've talked about it off camera. TIFs are a nightmare.
Well, it depends on how they're used, I guess.
Okay, well.
But,
I know you don't like them very much.
It just kind of goes without saying that, no good deed goes unpunished, and no good government program goes unsubsidized. The whole idea with the TIF, I believe, okay, I'm no expert on TIFs or TIDs, I think as they're called, tax and incremental districts. I'm not the world's greatest authority on them, but the whole notion is that there's going to be costs involved in adding the sewer and the water and the infrastructure and widening the roads, et cetera. If somebody wants to build a business on the corner of 12 and 13, and they're going to spend lots and lots of money, the idea is that the general fund will continue to take the taxes for what the base value of that property was, and the extra value that's added by the business or whatever goes onto that property is then goes towards paying off the bonds that they needed to add the sewer lines and add the whatever. To my knowledge, this was not meant to be an excuse for building a museum and running these things forever. The problem with the TIFs, the TIDs, is that we wind up never getting the benefit to the taxpayer.
Other than the fact that it's value added. It's value added. That's why.
Well, but they're supposed to expire. The first TIF districts we had in the city of Kenosha was I can't remember what the exact address is, but it's out west in the city. It started in 1978, and they finally paid it off. Again, this differential was not going into the general fund; it was going to pay off the bonds and the interest on the bonds to provide the infrastructure for all of these businesses in this industrial park to be built. And when they paid it off, what they did was now that they reestablished the TIF in the same district, okay, and they're using the money from that TIF to pay off the museums and pay off all the stuff that's going on downtown. So this TIF that was started in 1978 is still running today, we're paying for that. That is coming out of our taxes. There's no fantasy about. Okay, we're going to build this great thing, and then 10 years down the road, we're going to get the benefit from it. 1978 was a long time ago. Jimmy Carter was
I think
president
that
when
was
that
longer
took.
than 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we've had time to settle in after our election. We've had time to think about what we've done and what we didn't do, and for you especially, you've had time to reflect on how the campaign went. What do you see as a pressing need for Kenosha County and the city of Kenosha to really start concentrating on now? If you were on the board, what do you think would be one of the first things that you would like to see happen?
Well, I'd like to bounce back to something we were talking about earlier, which is people getting involved. We need more people on the local level, folks like us who are just paying our taxes and just Joe Schmoes who are maybe a little bit tired of looking at our tax bill and wondering what the hell's going on here. We need those people getting involved. If you don't want to run for office, find the guy or woman who's running for office in your district and grill them and find the person who you agree with the most. Get behind them and go knock on a few doors for them. It's actually kind of fun. It's fun to get involved in this stuff. Do it. Get out there. Be involved. Help build the parks. Be a volunteer. Be an active member of your community. Don't just sit there waiting for it to happen to you.
Because it won't.
All that's going to happen is every year you're going to open your tax bill and wonder, who's this idiot who's representing me and why aren't they doing anything for my taxes? The other thing, as far as the pressing issues in Kenosha County, I think we have there is a disconnect, and this wouldn't actually fall under the direct responsibilities of a Kenosha County supervisor, but there's a disconnect between all these services that the county is offering, the unemployment services, Gateway, et cetera. And the workforce in Kenosha County. There's a lot of overlap of the services that are being offered. So I'd like to see there be a little bit more of a connection between all these different organizations, so I can help the people who are out there looking for work and the employers actually match up with the type of work that's being offered.
Instead
and hopefully
of just offering a program.
Right, and hopefully it's not going to be just more warehouses and things like that as we move forward. Hopefully we'll get back into some more manufacturing work. The other thing is there's a real crisis, frankly, in Kenosha County of a lack of mental health care workers. We don't have a facility in Kenosha County right now to deal with mental health care issues that are coming from a Medicaid standpoint, and we're sending them out to Racine. And Racine cut the number of beds that it was offering by 2/3, and apparently nobody from Kenosha knew that. So they're winding up in state facilities, and it's costing us 3 or 4 times as much money
because you have to do that commute with the ambulance and everything else.
Well, yeah, and the facilities themselves are $1,500 a bed as opposed to $540 or whatever the Racine facility was. But to me, that's a very personal issue, because I think if there is anything that we are tasked with as a government, particularly on the local level, is taking care of our veterans. And a lot of these people who wind up in these facilities, frankly, are vets. I mean, these are people that we as a society, if they're broken, we broke them. It's our job to take care of them. It's our job to fix them. So I think that's a pressing issue. And I think, frankly, another pressing issue that we're going to well, I'll wait till you get your next question.
Yeah. No, that's about it for this one.
Oh, is it? Do you still have a couple of minutes?
No, we're going to have to wrap up.
All right.
We could sit here all day long, I know, but
yeah.
And with that, we're going to have to make our final pause for the cause, because it's time for a wrap up for Shaking Up Kenosha. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.